My 24 female boyfriend, 24 male, wants me to lie and say it was me driving my car when actually it was him who had a single car accident. If it's proven it's him, he will probably lose his car insurance. I want to help him but don't know what to do. Original post. Earlier this morning, we were coming back from a party in my car, and my boyfriend was speeding and absolutely plowed into parked cars on the street in front of a donut shop. My car is totaled, and the other 2 cars probably are as well. The cops showed up in record time, and while we were separated, he told them it was me who was driving. The donut shop apparently had video and caught the whole thing. They told him that the video seemed to show him driving, but it wasn't clear, so they would take his word for it. The cops then wrote me 3 tickets for speeding, losing control of a vehicle, and reckless driving. I was so in shock that I didn't even know what to say, so I just signed the tickets. We got an Uber home and got into a huge fight, and I was just exasperated that he would do this to me. He reminded me that if he took responsibility for the accident, he would lose his job, and his car insurance would become unaffordable, so he wouldn't be able to get to work. I told him that my car is now gone, and my rates are going to skyrocket. He promised me he would buy me a new car and also help with my increased insurance rates. The accident was about 6 hours ago, and I still haven't called my insurance company to report it. Of course, the other 2 people whose cars were totaled have probably called, so my insurance likely already thinks I caused the accident and is preparing to raise my rates going forward. I'm so angry, and I have no idea what to do. I don't want my boyfriend to lose his job, but I also don't want to be screwed over because he was driving recklessly. I would really appreciate any advice. Now for the top advice before reading the update. No, do not go along with this at all. I'm an insurance adjuster, so here are the consequences for you, assuming this is in the US. 1. Your car, your insurance, is primarily responsible for the damages, injuries, etc., even if he was driving. By lying about who was driving, you are committing insurance fraud. This is a crime that can range from a misdemeanor to a felony, and they will prosecute you and your boyfriend. 2. When you're found to be committing insurance fraud, they will drop you. And you will have a hard time getting insurance because your name will go into a national database for fraudulent items. Forget high rates. Worry about being insurable at all. 3. If you're caught lying to your insurance company about fraud, they can deny your entire claim. All of it. Do you want to be responsible for paying for your car and 2 other cars? 4. Lying to the police can lead to charges for both you and him for filing a false report. Your boyfriend did this, so it's his responsibility to face the consequences, and they're going to be severe if you go along with this lie, especially if there's even vague video evidence. Clear this up immediately with the police, your insurance company, and try to get a copy of that video. And ditch the lying boyfriend. Am I screwed because I signed the tickets? I was so in shock at what was being told to me, I signed them without even realizing what I was doing. Honestly, I don't know. Call the officer who wrote them and ask. As I said, if they were suspicious already, that will work in your favor. But don't sit and think about it. Just fix it now. Why on earth would you cover for and love someone who has demonstrated complete and utter disregard for you? You do realize that covering for him is illegal, right? You've also set a precedent that his comfort and well-being are more important than yours. He shouldn't make you pay for his crime. It's his fault and his mess. Are you seriously going to let this giant mistake ruin your life with your insurance rates? Not to be a nag, but why were you 2 operating a vehicle that condition? An Uber would have been smarter and cheaper. He claims he wasn't drunk. I don't drink but was tired, so I was trying to sleep on the way home. How much did he drink during the party? Did he eat and switch to water or coffee an hour or more before you guys left? Do you have the money to pay for the damages to the other people's property? Being tired is just as bad as being drunk. Also, what are you gonna do now that you don't have a car? I'm not sure. We stayed at a party until about 8 a.m. and I had been ready to leave at midnight. But he wanted to hang out with his friends. I fell asleep in a guest room around 3, so I'm not sure what he did after that. All I know is around 8, he woke me up to go home. And about 15 minutes later, while I was sort of dozing in the car, I woke up to my side of the car being smashed in around me. If he breaks up with you, do you have others who can help ferry you around? Do you make enough to cover restitution on your own, along with rent and day-to-day living expenses. Also, since it's unclear if you'll come clean, do you make enough to cover all of this plus the increased insurance cost when you eventually get a new car, factoring in at-fault increase of hitting multiple cars? I ask because my mother once made sure to pursue an 8th-time drunk driver for totaling her car. If you take the fall, you'll be covering expenses for your car, person 1's car, and a person 2's car. No, not at all. I'm pretty broke and my parents hate my boyfriend so much. And that I'm with him, they have more or less written me off. So I don't even really have a place to go if I dump him, let alone all the stuff you are talking about. Now for the update. So basically, at the advice of this thread, I stopped posting and called my mom and dad, who I really hadn't spoken to since I moved in with boyfriend, and said I was leaving him. I was scared and begged to be picked up. This was about 1:30 a.m. They said they would be over right away. I had locked myself in the bathroom and my boyfriend must have heard me making the call because he started trying to beat the door down and I was terrified. When the door didn't go down easy, I could hear him smashing things out in the living room of the apartment and kitchen. I stayed on the phone with my mom while my dad called 911 on his phone. I stayed locked in the bathroom, and he occasionally would try to break the door down and again. All this time I was crying and so freaking scared, and he was screaming and calling me every name in the book. We have neighbors with kids, and I heard the kids wake up and start crying. And then I'm pretty sure I heard one of the dads beating on our front door telling boyfriend to shut up. Cops showed up just before my parents and immediately put him in handcuffs and put him on a couch and started taking statements from me and the neighbors. I came out of the bathroom and he looked like a raging chained up psychopath. Everything, and I mean everything in our apartment is destroyed. Walls, plates, pictures, TV, Xbox, ironing board, chairs. My clothes were thrown over the balcony, my makeup was smashed against the wall, and stuffed animals I was given as a baby were ripped apart. I have no idea how long it was, but it was crazy he did so much damage in such a short period of time. My dad and my mom showed up and my mom started bawling because she hadn't seen me in so long, and my dad looked like he wanted to end my boyfriend. But with the police there, he composed himself really well. We had to stay during the time the police took everyone's statement. It was clear he was going to be arrested for a ton of stuff. I started telling them what caused all this and the story from earlier in the morning. So the officer asked me to get the tickets, and it turns out the officer who wrote the tickets this morning is the guy from the night incident's direct supervisor. So they're going to talk today and if need be, maybe go back to the donut place and look at the footage. Then the worst thing of all happened. My mom was standing sort of by the door as they were taking boyfriend out in handcuffs. My mom gave him a really nasty look and he said something like, "If she goes home with you, you'll just have another who blows her brains out." My older brother ended himself when he was 17 and I was 10. My mom has never gotten over it. Neither have I really. My mom reached out and slapped him as hard as she possibly could. So then the police had no choice but to arrest her as well. They were nice about it and loosely handcuffed her and took her to one of the squad cars. So I got dressed and tried to pack up and salvage whatever I could while my dad went down to bail out my mom. One of the 3 police stayed in a parking lot in his car, just in case any of boyfriend's boys showed up while I got what I could. My mom was in and out pretty quickly and is facing a misdemeanor battery charge which will probably go nowhere. But as you can imagine, while my parents were very happy to get me, they were extremely angry at what had transpired not only yesterday, but the last 6 months or so. I have a very long road ahead to repair the relationship with them. My dad has been mostly silent, but he did take me to the family attorney so he could start working on the stuff from the accident. He said it shouldn't be too hard to get me out of the tickets, and women especially take the fall for husbands or boyfriends' accidents way more often than you would think. I will probably still have to show up for court, but by that time, the investigation to show my boyfriend was the one really driving should be concluded and I will be dismissed. However, the thing that really sucks is that my state is a permissive use state, meaning that my insurance has to cover anyone who is driving my car. There is a good chance that my insurance company will fight it out with its company for overall liability, and it won't be as bad. But I'm still going to take a massive hit on car insurance premiums for a long time. Another good thing is the lease to the apartment is totally in his name, so I won't be responsible for any damages there. Plus, I didn't do anything to put holes in walls, and I can just walk away from that. This whole thing sucks so much, because even after all that happened, and as crazy as he knows, I know I still have feelings for him that I need to get in serious therapy right away to start dealing with. I can't have someone so destructive in my life who was willing to let me take the fall for all his crap and then scare the life out of me and threaten me. This is the third or fourth story I recall, where OP said they couldn't contact their parents because they cut ties due to significant other. But when OP calls, parents come immediately. I bring this up only to say, if anyone reading this finds themselves in a similar position, please do contact your parents. Obviously not if you had no contact because parents were toxic or abusive though. Chances are they've been hoping for the "I'm leaving my significant other" help call for a while. My ex-girlfriend beat the heck out of me outside a nightclub so badly I lost a tooth. I called my mom in hysterics about 1 a.m. and she was out the door heading my way in seconds. My mom is an amazing woman who always told me no matter what, she would be there if I needed her. Sorry for the ramble. This post brought back some not-so-fun memories. My aunt was in an abusive marriage and she cut her parents, my grandparents, and the rest of her family out of her life for a bit. One phone call for help, and everyone who could drove hundreds of miles to pack up everything she owned in that house, get her in with an attorney, find a storage facility for her furniture, told her work what was going on and help her give notice, and move her back in with her parents all in one day and all while the guy was at work. A lot of people are against stepping back from abuse victims, but sometimes you really need to for your own sanity. It's important to let them know that you'll still be there if they are willing to leave, but you aren't willing to stay involved in the day-to-day. Oh, thank God she left him. She really thought settling for an abusive prick like this was better than being alone? Did she even really love him, or did she just not want to be lonely? Abusive relationships are not always easy to leave. Last story. My wife accidentally traumatized our daughter. My wife and I made a mistake of getting married too young, so she constantly stressed with our daughter and chores. I don't help enough, so after work, the only thing I have time to do is make dinner and do laundry, while my wife has to do all of the hard stuff alone. She's always throwing this in my face, and most of the time I can accept it since it's a valid argument, but sometimes I just lose my patience and yell back. Last week was one of those times and I said something really hurtful, and she started smacking me, and I try to sit down because it usually makes her less angry. And then she just starts choking me. I can't remember if I tried to get away or if she pushed me. Either way, she told me I hit my head on a counter and then the floor and I passed out. My daughter was in the room and saw everything. She had never seen my wife hurt me in any way, so she was hysterical when I woke up because she thought I was gone. Things have been pretty neutral between me and my wife these past few days. But daughter hasn't moved past it. She keeps looking at the bruises on my neck and she follows me everywhere when I'm home. I know my wife feels like a horrible mother now, and my daughter won't talk to her unless it's necessary. I'm so afraid that this will become a core memory for her. Why did I even argue? I feel like such a crappy dad for not being able to keep my wife stable, but I'm just afraid of her and she knows it. I love my wife despite everything, but I don't know if my daughter will ever see us as truly happy together after this. Edit? I know rationally it's bad, but I've always been a dependent person, so I'm still holding on to the loving part of her, and I guess now it's gotten to the point where I feel like it's just part of being married to her. I'm going to try to answer some questions, but I don't want to be too long or too graphic. I might have a picture of a slap from years ago when it first started that I sent to my sister. But for some reasons, we don't talk, and I never did that again. I decided to take the advice here and take a picture of my neck, but as of right now, I haven't reported anything. Sorry. I also had people ask what the documented issues were. It's mostly being forcefully committed and multiple self-harm and attempts to end things from my teenage years, so as recently as 2 years ago, as well as an anxiety and disorder I refused further treatment for. I guess I'm not always the most mentally stable, and I can still work with medication, but on paper, it just looks really bad. Sir, you are being mistreated. You are also blaming it on yourself, common for domestic violence victims. Your entire post is excusing your wife's behavior. And this is a common occurrence because you know ways to calm her down. I'll give you the same advice I would give a wife being treated this way by a man. Leave. Take your child and leave. Visitation can be worked out later, but for now, both of you need to leave. File a police report and a restraining order. Then file for divorce. She didn't push you a little or smack your shoulder. She choked you unconscious, leaving bruises. And your daughter witnessed it. This has to end. Hopefully your wife will seek treatment and become a better person, but you can't wait around for that to happen. Once DV escalates to choking, I think it's 750% higher risk of being unalived by your partner. And leaving him there until he wakes up instead of calling an ambulance? That's insane. It is insane. But we know why she left him there. If she called an ambulance, they would want to know what happened to him, at least in order to know what treatment he needed. She might lie to their faces, but I bet the daughter wouldn't. Domestic violence has a tendency to escalate. Please plan a safe escape for you and your daughter. Your wife sounds like a monster. From here on out, the most likely cause of your passing is your wife. She needs actual help. DV is never okay, but you don't choke someone unless you want them gone, even if it's only momentarily. Right now, you're fine. But what about next time? Make no mistake, there will be a next time. This broke a seal. Figure out someone you trust and tell them what happened in writing. Include pictures of any injuries if possible. Unfortunately, you're a man, I'm presuming, so it may be a bit more difficult finding DV resources for you, as well as being incredibly difficult to get police to take you seriously should it come to that. So I'd start preparing now to leave at a moment's notice, even if you plan on counseling. Be safe, OP.
Am I the a-hole for how I reacted to my brother-in-law lying to my sister? So I am 26 male, my sister is 28 female, my brother-in-law is 30 male, and my wife is 28 female. So my wife is 7 months pregnant, and she has some complications relating to the pregnancy, so keeping her calm is harder and more of a priority than it would normally be. But 2 weeks ago, she was told her father died, so I have been helping her grieve. But my sister recently, she told me a week ago she found out a bit before that, but didn't tell me. Found out she had breast cancer. But the thing is, brother-in-law was apparently, foreshadowing, on a very important 3-month-long business trip. So she wasn't able to reach him, because he was apparently very busy, so he only texted her supportive messages when she wanted and needed a lot more. So she came to me. Having to almost literally fully take care of both of them, I was tired and stressed. So one day while my sister was finding support groups and my wife was helping with planning the funeral, it was supposed to be a close family affair, so I wasn't a big part of it. I went to go to a bar with friends. We're all vaccinated and restrictions are being lifted for vaccinated people here. And was just venting to a friend who works at the same company as brother-in-law. It's a local one that has grown pretty well. And when I mentioned it, he said that the company had no business trips going as of now. And I lost my crap. I asked my friend to call him, and because my friend works at the company, he answered and I asked him where he was. He played dumb, and I said that I knew he wasn't on a business trip. So he came clean and said that he wanted to go to a friend's house and party as COVID restrictions were finally up. I started screaming at him and told him that his wife was diagnosed with breast cancer and he prioritized partying with his friends more. Told him he's a scummy, horrible person. He yelled back that I'm selfish for only caring about my stress right now. I retorted with he's selfish for not going back to his wife and yelled numerous obscenities and told him I would be telling my sister when she calmed down. He yelled at me saying I'm a jerk for not letting him have his own time before hanging up. My friend says I'm in the right, but I still feel like I could be an a-hole for yelling obscenities at him. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your brother-in-law sucks. He has abandoned his wife for months to party when he knows his wife is in the midst of a medical crisis. A weekend would be bad enough, but 3 months? I was thinking something similar. A weekend would be fine, but 3 months is BS. If I'm getting the timeline right, he planned his trip before the diagnosis and felt the need to not only lie, but go away for such a long time. Where the hell is that money coming from? Are there not better things to spend it on? There are clearly some issues here, and even without the diagnosis, I would say either brother-in-law needs to change or she should drop him. Not an a-hole. Part of being a good caregiver / supports your family and friends is self-care. You are clearly dealing with some stress, This one night off was for you to regroup and re-energize. I know science/medicine has come a long way from even a decade ago, so I'm optimistic about your sister's medical situation. Also, congrats on the new upcoming addition to your family. Not a-hole. Sounds like he's staying with a friend and still working, so money wouldn't really be any different other than meals. This is crazy, and I hope he definitely needs to tell his sister so she can leave this loser. Not a-hole. Just an FYI, he was out cheating. He was definitely shacking up with someone else. It was no party to be had, my friend. A 3-month-long business trip? Yeah, but he had a 3-month-long relationship. Yep. 1. No parties 3 months. 2. You can answer your phone if he was just partying. He's definitely with someone else and is hiding it. Not a-hole. Without the cancer diagnosis, lying to his wife about fake business trips is scummy. Partying both during COVID, restrictions may be easing but they are not gone. And while lying to his wife is scummy. The cherry on top is, when he finds out his wife has breast cancer, his first thought is Opie's the selfish one for yelling at him? Nope, he deserves that thrashing, and I hope your sister doesn't let him off easy. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole if I go on a trip without my paralyzed twin sister? My twin sister and I, 25 female, were the very best of friends growing up. Did everything together, spent every minute together. We recently celebrated our birthday. We were originally going to go on a trip that would have us hiking, camping, exploring, and doing other outdoorsy things we've never done because we grew up in the city we live in now. Last year, my sister was in an accident that left her paralyzed. She's in a wheelchair and she'll never walk again. Obviously, this changed her life in ways I'll never understand. But I cried with her and spent all my free time, I go to med school in this city, with her when it happened. As she started healing, she started being very cold towards me. It was clear she wasn't happy that I was able to do things she couldn't, which I fully understand. She was getting nastier and nastier with her comments until I decided to give her the space she needed. It breaks my heart that we aren't as close as we once were, but I know she's going through so much. When our birthday approached, my father asked us how we would like to celebrate, and my sister said she wanted to go to a museum and dinner. She mentioned trying a camping trip in a few years when she was more used to her chair. We celebrated how she wanted and had a great time. She enjoyed herself, so I was happy. Unbeknownst to me, my boyfriend, also in med school, dating for 3 years, has met my family and they all love him. Planned a trip for the two of us, him plus me, to go to his hometown area. Said trip would include camping and hiking, but the point of the trip was to see his hometown and his brothers, his only living family members, both of whom I've never met. He had no idea my sister and I had wanted to go camping, etc. My sister was furious when she found out about the trip and will not speak to me, take my calls, or listen to my parents try to talk to her about me. I did explain to her everything I said in the previous paragraph, but it made no difference to her. My parents have told me to go on the trip, and that my sister will eventually get over this feeling. But the fact that my twin sister, who was the other half of me for 24 years, wants nothing to do with me, has me feeling pretty low. I know the trip means a lot to my boyfriend, who has said we can cancel, but I feel like that would make me an a-hole to him instead. The trip would be in early June, so I can't wait it out too much longer and do need to make a decision. I was speaking to a nurse friend at my hospital, and he recommended I post here to get insight, but I did make a throwaway and change some slight detailing. Am I the a-hole if I go on this trip without my sister? Edit. Part of what got cut out was how my boyfriend told me. It was at a dinner in which my sister and parents were present. Also, we are identical twins. Not the a-hole. It is a tragedy what happened to your sister. However, it does not mean that you have to stop doing everything that brings you joy because she is no longer able to. It is certainly difficult for your sister now, but sooner or later she will need to come to terms with it. I hope she does. Also, that she's seeing someone for these feelings. I know it's common to do so after you've been in a traumatic accident, and if she's not ready, she should. Not the a-hole at all. You are your own individual. Of course, it's alright for you to go on a trip with your boyfriend, without your sister. If your sister has a problem with it, it's clearly issues on her side. Nothing you can do. It would be crazy to cancel. The trip had nothing to do with your sister from the start. If you cancel, you're only going to be validating that your sister had a right to be angry, which she absolutely does not. Not Day-Hall. Your boyfriend didn't intend to be cruel. He just included activities that he knew you were interested in, and it happened to hit on a sore subject. Unfortunate, but not intentional. Go on the trip, meet his brothers, and take note of the things that, someday, you might be able to share with your sister. In the meantime, has your sister seen a therapist? If she hasn't, please talk to your folks about broaching that subject with her. It sounds like she's gone through more than she can navigate on her own, and a professional could help with that. She hasn't seen a therapist, and she will not listen to anyone's suggestions that she should. My mother and father have both tried, and her doctors have recommended it, but she doesn't like when people acknowledge she even has the chair. I think she has a long way to go before she'll really consider therapy. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not respecting my dad's wishes and inviting my ex-step-siblings to our baby shower? My wife is pregnant with our first, and last week was our baby shower. I, 28 male, have 2 ex-step-siblings, though we still consider each other siblings. Sarah, 28 female, and Mikey, 26 male. My dad and their mom got together when I was 10, and their mom was awful. Not just to meet my sister, but to them too. She never cared about any of us. My dad worked all the time, so most of the time she left us alone so she can go out and have fun. Cheat on my dad with her many boyfriends. Because we were home alone all the time, we bonded a lot. Watching movies until 3 a.m., making dinner for ourselves or helping each other with our school. Mikey is dyslexic and my ex-stepmom never bothered with him, so we had to help him the most. Their mom was mean to all of us, so that made us bond even closer. Have that level of understanding that we were all going through. My dad finally saw her true colors and how toxic/abusive the marriage actually was when I was 15. It was an ugly divorce, and my dad wanted to be completely cut off from her, so we weren't able to see each other as much. He basically banned us, but we still hang out after school. By the time we were adults, my sis and I told Dad he can't control who we can/can't spend our time with, so he knows we're still in contact with our step-siblings. They were at my wedding. My dad wasn't because he was out of the country. And now with my wife pregnant, I want them to be involved in our son's life as uncle and aunt. They want that too and are super excited to meet him. Before, when we were planning the baby shower, my dad asked, "You're not inviting them, are you?" I told him yes, and he didn't take that well. We'd had this argument before. He hates that I still involve them in my life when they, according to him, have no business. And again, I said to my dad, it's my life and my family's life, and I want them involved in it. On the day of the baby shower, when they showed up, my dad was ignoring them and in a bad mood. He left early with his wife, and then he called me up later to tell me what a cruel son he thinks I am, for not respecting the fact that he doesn't want reminders of his past failed marriage when he's trying to enjoy a celebration for his grandson, and tired of me putting them first over his emotional health. So I know the divorce took a huge emotional toll on him, and it was hard coming to terms with the reality of how awful my ex-stepmom truly was to all of us, including him. I get that being hard, but I don't feel that's my step-siblings' fault. They don't even have a relationship with her anymore. But to him, they're still reminders of that time, and it upset him seeing them at the baby shower. Was I Nahal for still inviting them knowing he wasn't comfortable with it? Now for the comments. Not Dayhal. Your step-siblings aren't responsible for their mother's behavior. You are showing way more maturity than your father by keeping a relationship with them. He needs to stop making things all about him and move on when the divorce was years ago. You divorce wives, not children. Not Dayhal. Not Dayhal. Your siblings were innocent in all of this, and your dad is the a-hole for holding it against them. For real though, there is only one person in the wrong here, and it's sure as hell not Opie. Not Dayhal. One of the great things about adulthood is you get to choose your family. You got 2 great siblings out of a horrible situation, and you have every right to keep them as part of your family. It's too bad your father didn't see it as an opportunity to gain 2 awesome kids, but that's his problem and not yours. Not Dayhal. Your father abandoned you with a woman he later learned was terrible, and he still can't feel anything for anyone but himself. To him, it's a failed marriage, but for you and your siblings, it was years of neglect and cruel treatment. He doesn't get to choose when he is a parent, and he doesn't get to determine who your family is. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad to stick his present up his behind? So I, 16 female, am still living with my parents. Their wedding anniversary is in a few days, and I gift them a handmade present every year. This year, I wanted to make a collection of canvas paintings for them. I am very busy nowadays, therefore I wanted to do this quickly and go on my only free day of the week. Unfortunately, my parents chose that day to do gardening work. I told them beforehand that I was busy and couldn't help them. My father was a bit grumpy about that, but let it slide. So I started at 7 a.m. and finished at 5 p.m. So basically I was painting upstairs in my room all day. After cleaning up, I walk downstairs and tell my dad that I've got time to help my mom now. He doesn't respond. I ask if everything is fine, and he says, why wouldn't it be? So of course something is up. He dances around the issue for a while, until he tells me that he's disappointed in me for not helping them. I argued that I told them I was busy. We go back and forth for a while, until he yells, asking what could be so important. At that point, I felt simply invalidated, no matter if he knew what I was doing or not. So I just yelled back that I was making their wedding anniversary present, and he could stick it up his behind when he receives it, because that was the last time I'd hand-make a present for either of them. I stormed upstairs and that was about it. I'm definitely not proud of what I said, even less knowing that my mom hates us fighting. But on the other hand, I feel like no matter what I do, something is always wrong. Am I the a-hole? This is called miscommunication, and the end result is a normal family BS. You and your dad are not a-holes. You are humans, and you had a differing perspective because you had differing information. You should have told him what you were up to at some point, so he would not be boiling all day. No a-holes here. Talk to your dad and say, I want to discuss what happened yesterday and see if he can make amends. You decided to make a complicated, time-intensive gift in one day. You decided to refuse when asked with a vague I'm busy. You decided to get upset and rude when asked what you were doing. You decided to be evasive and expected him to know what you were doing. You decided to act like a brat and throw a fit when he didn't successfully read your mind and praise you for being so considerate. The words, I'm working on your anniversary gift would have solved everything. But then you wouldn't have had a reason to complain about your mean dad who yelled at you when you were doing something nice for him, would you? You're the a-hole. Yeah, this is pretty much it. As soon as dad started getting upset, letting him know she was busy making their present would have ended it. I can cut a 16-year-old some of slack for not having great communication skills. Half of these AITA posts occur because adults have poor communication skills. No a-holes here. It's the kind of thing where the child wants to surprise the parents with a gift, but not spoil it by giving it away that is for them. And the parents thinking that the child is just trying to get out of doing work / chores around the house, or thinking the child's business is not as important as their request to do something. Miscommunications happen. If you had a history of getting out of doing things for your parents by doing this, it's probably why he reacted this way, and will change my judgment accordingly. But I'd say no a-holes for now. Edit. Thank you for all your comments, feedback, and critique. I've spoken to my parents and sincerely apologized for being a mouthy brat. My dad and I agreed to solve our communication issues better and try to be less confrontational than our usual selves. The current situation seems to have taken toll on us. Am I the a-hole for telling my ex he can figure out his own damn gifts for his own kids and stop expecting free stuff from me? I found out my ex was having an affair 5 years ago. He left me for the other woman, who he now has 3 kids with. We have 2 together. Our daughter is 10 and our son is 8. At first, I did my best to try and put things in the past and think of the kids by being considerate when it came to their siblings. And then they started expecting me to send more and more. I'm talking not just something for Christmas or birthdays, but Easter and whenever I get my kids something big just because. It was also the expectation that I would take them on fun trips with my kids, that I would have them in my home. And I just can't. I hate my ex. I hate his wife, and I don't love their kids, even as my kids' siblings. I don't hate them, but I also don't want to be part of their lives. Might sound terrible, but I just can't. Even with them being cute babies and toddlers, there is just too much that went on with me and my ex and his affair partner that I can't deal. Now, ex is claiming that this is hurting the kids. I'm a spiteful witch, that I owe it to our kids to be a better person, etc. and that it made the kids days to have gifts from someone other than mom and dad, since his wife is a former foster kid and he was disowned by his family for cheating. They're very religious and do not approve of divorce or any kind of cheating, and I can confirm they were disgusted by his actions. So the kids only have them. X was never a person who had a lot of friends, and definitely not someone who would buy gifts for the kids. The kids never really got into buying the gifts, which could be due to X only having one weekend a month due to his work schedule. But yeah, I guess part of me does feel bad because of the kids. The other part of me just really resents being in this position and being taken advantage of by my ex and his wife. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Ironic that a man who had an affair left you for the mistress is telling you to be the better person. Well, he knew he wasn't capable of being it. Not the a-hole. You do not owe your ex's kids gifts. Unfortunately, the expectation has already been set up with them, but they'll get over it. Don't let yourself be guilted. They definitely would. All his kids are under 5, so we'll probably forget eventually. I can still feel a bit guilty, but it's not a thing I want to keep doing forever. Not the a-hole. He thinks you owe it to the kids to be a better person? What does he owe to the kids then? Not the a-hole. What about not having a home-wrecking father? He owed that to his first kids. Not the a-hole. He is latched onto you like a leech. Salt won't work here, but he needs to get shut down hard. The cohesion of his family is his business, not yours. Good luck. He sounds very tiring, but you are absolutely right. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my bio dad a stranger? Long story, hope it makes sense. I, 27 female, spoke to my bio dad, 50s male, a while back, and he said he wanted me to have his last name. In the past, this man claimed my mother was a loose woman, and that I wasn't his child. He would even tell me this when I was little and was visiting him. So I told him I didn't think I wanted to do that because of said history, and he made it off like it should be an honor, and that he's ready to claim me as his own. Fast forward, I get a call from his sister. She asked if I could go to court and tell a judge that my bio dad is my dad, so that it would be easier for him to get a green card. I said I'd only do it if he was going to bring my siblings over too, but I wanted to wait. Well, they moved on and tried to find another way to bring him into the country. Eventually, I spoke to his family about what happened and mentioned that he doesn't know me. He's never acknowledged my birthdays or helped my mother financially. She had to bust her bum to give me what I needed, and luckily, what I wanted. He'd only call, but with years between phone calls, visits only happened because my mom would save up to send me on vacation during school break to see her sister. And every chance I had to spend time with him, he would get drunk and just rant about how my mother is loose. I also mentioned that I tried to confront him about this, and how much pain it cost me, only for him to deny it ever happened. He might have been too drunk to remember. Anyways, once my rant was over, I topped it off with threatening to file for child support on my mother's behalf if I did help him get a green card. I said he's a stranger and has a big sense of entitlement. Well, his family didn't like that at all. They said I needed to forgive him and to let him into my life because he's my dad, and always will be. My siblings are very offended, and some of our cousins have been rude about it too. They're acting like I'm being disrespectful. I don't think I said it in a rude way, but with conviction. Am I the a-hole? Edit. This post has me shaking in my boots down memory lane. I should have clarified some things. He is currently sober, and his sister was going to cover all the expenses, including a lawyer. I'm not too sure what the process is, but I was told I could have helped the process to get a green card go a lot faster. He tried to find another way to get into the country, so I'm sure he can keep trying. I just needed time to process their request, and I only considered it for my siblings' sake. As for the child support, I felt like my mom would be entitled to some kind of compensation. I don't even know if I could file for it. She paid for a lot of medical bills insurance wouldn't cover when I was growing up, so shouldn't they try to help? She never asked anyone for a dime when I had a surgery. Never even shared about the financial pressure she was under until much later, and that made my heart hurt for her. I don't believe my mother is a loose woman. I think she chose to leave an unsafe/unhealthy situation. She became a citizen in another country, learned to write/read/speak another language, and became an independent woman who lived kinda comfortably. I also think this embarrassed them, so they slandered her. Most women stay no matter what in their town. And what makes me laugh is that my mother never spoke a word about him unless I had questions. Thank you. You guys helped me realize that this guilt isn't mine to bear and gave me the confidence to start putting some boundaries up or cut them out. I'm more than happy to forgive them for being human. I just don't want them in my life, and that's okay. I decided that today, actually. Bless you all with whatever good vibes you believe in. Not today, Hull. Just sounds like they want to use you to get him a green card. Exactly this. And he'll disappear when you're not of use to him anymore. Until he needs a kidney. Not today, Hull. He is a stranger as he's not been father. End of story. I forget what comedian it is, so I can't give them credit or direct to a YouTube link, but he's got a bit about how if you refer to your dad as your bio dad and not just dad, it really tells you all you need to know about that relationship. Not today, Hull. If he hasn't acknowledged you over the years and suddenly wants you to have his last name, then he is the a-hole. Not today, Hull. Providing seed does not make someone a dad. You owe him nothing. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad that I wouldn't need to use my magical child of divorce powers if he didn't F up in the first place? Some background. My female 17 mom and dad separated when I was 6, and he married to Maggie when I was 8. Since then, they've had 3 kids together who I absolutely adore. Even though we're only half siblings, they all tie for the #1 spot on my list of favorite people, and we're pretty close. Plus, my dad is currently going through his 3rd marriage as he was married once before my mom. My dad told me a few days ago that he and Maggie are getting divorced for reasons I'd rather not explicitly disclose. But in general, they're both at fault. He is currently staying at my grandparents' house. It has been for about 2 weeks. But my siblings think he's away on business. He really wants to see us, so he asked me to come down and I agreed. However, when he told them, they did not take it well. At all. And while I'm not really surprised at their reaction, from the way it was described to me, I don't think he really helped. From what I understand, Maggie and him sat them down. My dad appeared virtually, told them they were getting a divorce, refused to answer any questions as to why, except for them saying that they don't love each other anymore and they haven't for a while now. They told them that there was nothing more they could do for each other and that they were sick of trying. My siblings flipped out and apparently haven't even been speaking with my stepmother since she told them. Now, when my dad told me this, he said that while he wanted to spend time with me this weekend, he needed me to patch up the kids and use my experience as a child of divorce. I told him I wasn't a therapist, and that while I'm more than happy to help, I can't promise that they're gonna want to talk to them because they have a right to be upset. He said that they were just overreacting, and that they're gonna have to grow up and get used to it because witching about it isn't going to change anything. At this point, I just straight up told him that if some people could keep it in their pants, maybe we wouldn't be here. He said that was unfair, and that he was my father, and that I had no right to talk to him like that. I responded that he had no right to tell my siblings, or anybody, how to feel, and that I hoped for the next marriage he might get it together. He hung up. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You were 17 years old, and you were right with everything. 1, you are not a therapist. 2, you and your siblings don't ask to be born. 3, you and your siblings has a right to be upset. But for your sake, don't let you used by them. It is their responsibility to bring their stuff together, not yours. Would probably be nice if Opie to speak to her siblings as a child of a divorce and tell them that they'll get through it. Everything else is on Opie's dad and Maggie. You'd think by now Opie's dad would be more practiced at divorce announcements. But hearing this too will pass and they'll survive, if worse for the wear, from someone they like, trust, and who isn't currently engaged in breaking that trust, may be helpful to them. Lord knows these kids can't rely on their parents. Not an a-hole. You're absolutely not your half-sibling's therapist, and your dad is asking you to handle them for him because otherwise, he'd have to address how he screwed up here and actually parent. Good on you for recognizing it and telling him no. Honestly, if this is his 3rd time divorcing, you would think he'd have learned what not to do by now. Nah, he just figures the next one will be pliant and submissive enough to do whatever he wants. Not a a-hole, by the way. Not a a-hole. I wish I could buy you a beer for such an epic response. Not a a-hole. It's his and Maggie's responsibility to arrange for therapy for the kids. not to guilt you into playing that role instead. Divorce can have a huge impact on younger kids, and it sounds like he's taking this far more lightly than his kids are. Calling Dad out may have been unnecessary, but Dad was being completely unreasonable and sounds like he could use the wake-up call. That being said, your dad's hostility on the matter, if unusual, could be a sign that he feels a reasonable amount of guilt for what his kids are going through. If so, he's coming from a place of many emotions and may not be at his most reasonable right now. Nonetheless, asking you to do the job of a trained mental health professional is inappropriate, and you were right to decline. Now, for the last story, am I the a-hole for telling my grown son why he didn't grow up with his father's surname? I, 44 female, was in a toxic relationship. My ex Joe, 49 male, met me when I was 15, and we started dating when I was 18. My mom was against the relationship, and I moved in with him at 19 because I thought that since mom was never married, she didn't know what she was talking about. I won't go into more details, but eventually I wised up, reconciled with my mom, and moved away. Not that Joe made it easy. I later met my other ex, Eric, 45 male, and I told him about Joe and said that he might reach out to him. I warned him that Joe was a liar and just a terrible person. Fast forward to me being 7 months pregnant with our son AJ, 20 male. This was my first pregnancy, and I was very nervous because it wasn't planned. I was worried that Eric would leave me after the baby was born, and constantly ask him to reassure me that no matter what happened, he'd still be here. Eric always did until one day he didn't, and I started noticing that he was becoming distant. Eventually, he told me that Joe reached out to him and showed him pictures of him engaging in adult acts with a woman, and said that it was me and that he was my baby's father. You can't identify who the woman is, so Eric brushed it off at first. But then he thought about how I was always getting him to promise me that no matter what happened, he would never leave me, and now he had doubt. I told him the reasons why I needed to hear him say it'd stay, reminded him how crazy Joe was, and even got others to back up my story, and told him that I don't even want to talk to Joe, let alone be near him. Eric said that he understood, but to ease his mind, he wanted a DNA test. I was upset and very insulted, and asked what or if I ever did anything to make him believe that I was a cheater. Eric admitted that I never gave him a reason, so I said that there would be no test. We got into a fight, and Eric said that he refused to sign the birth certificate until a DNA test was done. I was hurt and moved out. I didn't talk to him and gave birth with my mom by my side. We took the test, and Eric was the father. He tried to apologize, but I didn't want to hear it. I would never deny access to our son, but I felt like he wasn't reliable, so I gave our son my surname so that in case Eric left him, then my son wouldn't have to deal with his own name being a reminder of the father who might abandon him. Now that AJ is a legal adult, he said he was interested in taking Eric's surname, and I was fine with that. But he asked me why he never had his dad's name in the first place. It wasn't the first time he asked, but I always brushed it off before. However, now that he was an adult, I told him the truth. AJ confronted his dad, and now he's not speaking to him at the moment. I didn't intend to cause a rift, and felt like my son would be bothered by it because it was more about us than him. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add. Keep seeing it, so I'm going to say it here and instead of each comment. 1. Yes, I told AJ the whole truth and didn't twist details in my favor. I told him that his father had doubts after seeing pictures. I felt hurt and wasn't sure if I could trust his father to stick around. I admitted to him that it was mostly issues I had, but was also hurt that Eric would trust someone who hurt me instead of me, despite admitting that I never gave him a reason to not trust me. 2. After my son was born, I developed postpartum and I got therapy not too long after giving birth, and have worked out a lot of my issues now that I'm a more mature adult. 3. Yes, despite my fears, Eric did stick around. And up until now, AJ and him have had a great relationship, which is why I feel guilt now. 4. I refused to hyphenate because, again, I thought Eric would leave and didn't want his name attached to our son if he did. 5. No, Eric never pushed to change the name, probably because he felt too ashamed after the test confirmed that I was telling the truth, but his side of the family would bring it up a couple of times. Not the a-hole. He's a grown man. He's old enough to know the truth. Not the a-hole. You were not married to Eric, and you never knew what kind of father he would turn out to be. You knew you were going to be a constant in your son's life, And it was in his and your best interest to give him your last name. Too many women give their children, who were born out of wedlock, no judgment, the last name of the father and then are tied, by name, to a man who doesn't participate in raising them. And that's what I was worried about. I've seen both sides of the situation for people growing up without their fathers, and those who didn't have their surname seem to have an easier time than the ones who did. Not Dayhall. He believed your abuser over you, effectively letting your known abuser use him to further his mistreatment on you. Dude's an accomplice to his act.